Hi, seventh graders. Welcome to January 2021. Again, I'm Valerie, as you know, and today our author in book talk is about Libba Bray. She is a historical fiction writer, and we're going to share some other historical fiction books as well. This is a little bit about Libba Bray. I was born with a great start to my life in Alabama, but without a banjo on my knee, for which my mother was so grateful. For those who keep asking, yes, Libba Bray is my real name. And yes, I realize that it sounds a lot like library, which I think is pretty cool. At least it doesn't sound like weasel fart. But your copyright page says Martha E. Bray, you protest. Simmer down there, young Podwin. If you must know, my full name is Martha Elizabeth Bray. In the interest of world peace, I was named after both grandmothers. Libba is short for Elizabeth. Yes, it would have made more sense to name me Elizabeth Martha. I agree. I have asked that more than once. My father told me that Martha Elizabeth was more euphonious. It's a fancy word for sounds better. I come from 25-cent world people. And now you know. We moved to Alabama to West Virginia for a nanosecond, and finally to Corpus Christi, Texas, and on the Gulf Coast. And by the time I was 3, I was pretty sure I was going to grow up to be a veterinarian, astronaut, figure skating, Julie Anderson, The Sound of Music, or Queen of England. My brother planned to be Batman since he already had a cape. We did not temper our ambitions in the Bray household. I was an odd little kid with a Lioness-style security blanket in one hand and a plastic elephant puppet on my right. My mother cut my hair just like Mia Farrow's in Rosemary's Baby, and people mistook me for a boy for much of my childhood. This led to a compulsion to show my pretty girl panties. Look, there's lots of ways to say hello, okay? I grew up in the church, not literally. I was hiding under the pews to bite the ankles of the devout or washing my pits in the baptismal fount. Because my father was a Presbyterian minister with a razor-sharp wit and a dislike for any music written after 1920. My mother was a high school English teacher. On Christmas Eve, her absolute favorite day of the year, bar none, she would run around the house shouting gleefully, "It's Christmas Eve! I'm peeking! I'm peeking!" while my friends looked on in horrified silence. Please do not ask me again why I'm so odd. By the time I was a young adolescent with some spiffy wardrobe choices to show off my identity, I was heavy into rock and roll, Mighty Python, punk. I loved the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and National Lampoons. My plans were to run away with an English rock star, where we would wear lots of eyeliner and write songs about hats. 3 weeks after high school graduation, I got into a serious car accident and demolished my face, and I lost my left eye. It took me many years to put me back together again, but most of the pieces seemed to be in the right places. And anyway, that's when I discovered how powerful writing can be, because writing everything down kept me alive. I went to the University of Texas, and my new plan was to become the next great American playwright. I wrote 5.5 plays. 3 of them got produced. 1 won an award. Apparently, I wasn't a very good playwright, which makes playwriting as a career somewhat difficult. I worked in publishing and advertising and entertainment. I wrote a copy for Richard Simmons and romance novels, including one about unicorn love. That was my low moment. My first book, The Great and Terrible Beauty, was published in 2003, and the rest, I say, is history. I'm married to a literary agent, and when I want his attention, I sing to him like with a sock puppet. He loves that. I bet he does. So that was a little bit about Libba Bray. So we're going to share a book that we talked about, and that's Libba Bray's The Great and Terrible Beauty. This is the first book in the series, and it will be in your collection box this month. So Gamma Doyle finds an icy reception at the Spence Academy in London. It's a boarding school to which she's sent after tragedy strikes her family in India. Lonely and guilt-ridden, Gamma taps into the power to attract the supernatural. Dark visions fill her mind that have an uncomfortable habit of coming true. Trying to survive at Spence, she becomes entangled with Felicity, the leader of the school's most powerful clique, and discovers her own mother's connection to the shadowy group called the Order. Secrets haunt the halls at Spence, with this mysterious burned-out East Wing, and after a diary lands in Gamma's hands, it leads her to the world she cannot fathom, one where her destiny waits if only she is brave enough to face it. So this is Libba Bray, The Great and Terrible Beauty. Not only is this historical fiction, it also has some magic qualities to it and some fantasy. Another book that I'm going to feature today that is historical fiction is My Brother Sam is Dead by James Lincoln Collar. We've beaten the British in Massachusetts. The Minuteman hid in the fields along the roads and massacred them all the way to Boston. When Tim's brother Sam burst in with the exciting news, everyone in the little Crossroads Tavern sat silent and shocked. Most people in that part of Connecticut were either Tories or people who thought the colonies had some legitimate complaints about England, but nothing serious enough to shed blood cover. Tim's father and mother, who ran the tavern, felt the same way, but not Sam. His brother, a few years older than him, Tim, had a mind of his own. Sam was convinced that the rebel cause was just and worthy to fight for. Tim was eager to hear more about what happened, but he dreaded what he knew would be a bad argument between Sam and his father. They had had frequent stormy quarrels in the past, and twice Sam had run away. Things had always cleared up after a while, but this time Tim wondered if there was any way their disagreement would ever be settled. A few days later, when Sam stole his father's gun and, despite Tim's efforts to stop him, went off to fight the British, Tim's fears were confirmed. And this, as you notice, there has a silver award on it. This is also a Newbery honor book. Now, Christopher Paul Curtis is known for writing historical fictions, and many of his books have received the prestigious Newbery Awards. Or honors, I should say. So we've got Christopher Paul Curtis's Elijah of Buxton. This one won an honor for the Newbery, and it won a Coretta Scott King Award. So this is what this one's about. Elijah is the first child born into freedom in Buxton, Canada, a settlement of runaway slaves just over the border of Detroit. He's best known in his hometown as the boy who makes a memorable impression on Frederick Douglass. But things change when a former slave steals money from Elijah's friend. Out of captivity in the South, Elijah embarks on a dangerous journey to America in pursuit of the thief, and he discovers firsthand the unimaginable horrors of the life his parents fled, a life from which he'll always be free if he can find the courage to get back home. And that's Elijah of Buxton. Another one of Christopher Paul Curtis's books that won awards for historical fiction is Inside Out and Back Again. It won a Newbery honor, and it won a National Book Honor Award. For all of her life, Ha had only known Saigon, the thrills of its markets, the joy of its traditions, the warmth of its friends close by, and the beauty of her own papaya tree. But now the Vietnam War has reached her home. Ha and her family are forced to flee as Saigon falls, and they board a ship headed toward hope. In America, Ha discovers the foreign worlds of Alabama. The coldness of its strangers, the dullness of its food, the strange shape of its landscape, and the strength of her very own family. And that's Inside Out and Back Again. And many of you are already familiar with The Watsons Go to Birmingham. Again, it won a Newbery and a Caldecott. And then, of course, there's Bud Not Buddy, which was Christopher Paul Curtis's Newbery winner award and a Coretta Scott. So this guy really knows his historical fiction. On a different note, a different historical fiction, which is a little closer to us, This one's called The Countdown by Deborah Wiles. So if you look at it, you see that there's a 45 on there. So that's going to be a little closer to our time period. Granted, it's still going to be back in the 50s and 60s, but it's going to have a little bit of fun. A time that changed the world, a time that changed Franny's life. Franny just wants some peace, but that's hard to get when her best friend is feuding with her. Her sister's disappeared and her uncle's fighting an old war in his head. Her saintly young brother is no help, and the cute boy across the street only complicates things. First of all, everyone is walking around just waiting for a bomb to fall. It's 1962, and it seems that the whole country is living in fear. When President Kennedy goes on television stating that Russia is sending nuclear missiles to Cuba, it only gets worse. Franny doesn't know how to deal with what's going on in the world, no more than she knows how to deal with what's going on with her family and friends. But somehow, she's got to make it through it. So in 1962, The Countdown. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoy your books, and I'll see you next time.